What's good? It's Wood. I want to talk some Creedence Clearwater Revival, but more specifically, I want to talk about what I find to be the most underrated song of their catalog. And that song is Ramble Tamble. You may have never heard of the song. And this is actually my favorite Creedence Clearwater Revival song. Now look, I know that they have some undeniable classics. They've got Bad Moon Rising. They've got Proud Mary. They've got Down on the Corner. They've got Fortunate Son. Countless others up around the bend. But I want to speak to Ramble Tamble, which is track 1 from their Cosmo's Factory album. Cosmo's Factory is their 5th album. It was 1970. And to really get an idea or some context around why Ramble Tamble is such a good and criminally slept on song, you've got to understand the Creedence Clearwater Revival trajectory. Basically, you've got to know how tight and compact the time period was where they released the bulk of their music. Now, since they have so many classic songs, like they've got kind of like a karaoke-like playlist in how many great songs they have. So you could mistakenly think that they were around for like a decade to produce all of these songs. But no, this was like a 2-year period where they did 90% of their phenomenal work. And more specifically, there was basically this like 2-year period where John Fogerty, I don't know how he wrote all these songs in such a tight time window, but he basically had what I would consider to be one of the best 2-year runs of any songwriter, any band, any artist in music history. And this basically all took place between 1968 and 1970. Like, they started getting kind of hot in 1968 when they had the Suzie Q single. Like, that was kind of their first breakout, but they didn't really totally break out until their follow-up to their self-titled debut album. The follow-up was called Bayou Country, and it was on that album that they then had Proud Mary, which, I mean, that's a classic. I mean, Ike and Tina Turner had a classic cover off of the classic. So when somebody releases a classic off of a classic, you know you've got something in terms of your songwriting. But they had that Proud Mary single from Bayou Country. They also had Born on the Bayou from the same album. So they went from that to then their 3rd album, Green River. Many people consider this to be their best or second best album. Green River had Bad Moon Rising, which is one of my top 3 favorite Creedence songs. And the Green River album also had the title track, Green River, and that was a number 2 hit on the Billboard Hot 100. So Proud Mary from their prior album hit number 2. Bad Moon Rising hit number 2. Green River hit number 2. So that's 2 number 2 songs off of one album. Green River produced, again, Bad Moon Rising and the Green River song. So by this point, they're just, they're like a hit-making machine with John Fogerty's songwriting and kind of musical curation, if you will. Like, yes, they did have one of the best rhythm sections you will hear from any band, but it was really the creative genius of John Fogerty, kind of the mastermind of the band, that led to this prolific 2-year run. So just a few months after that Green River album, they come with Willie and the Poor Boys. That was their 4th album. Willie and the Poor Boys had Down on the Corner, Out Here in the Streets, Willie and the Poor Boys are playing. So that song was called Down on the Corner. That song hit number 3, as did their next single, Fortunate Son. You probably heard Fortunate Son on Forrest Gump. That's like one of their most iconic songs. It was an anti-war song. And it should be mentioned that Creedence Clearwater kind of pioneered like the blue collar rocker, where in the late 60s, you had a lot of the flower power. You had like the Jefferson Airplanes, the Grateful Deads, basically all these like kind of stony rock groups and psychedelic groups. Well, Creedence Clearwater was a lot more kind of just down home. Yes, they were from Lodi, California, but they kind of channeled like the southern rock that would later emerge. And it should also be mentioned that Creedence Clearwater came, again, 1968, 1969, 1970. So this was just before the Allman Brothers Band. And this was before Lynyrd Skynyrd. This was before Pink Floyd really got going in the 70s. So a lot of your favorite 70s bands and albums, like whether you're talking Doobie Brothers or whether you're talking anything that Led Zeppelin did after their first 2 albums, Creedence Clearwater preceded a lot of that stuff. So again, with Willie and the Poor Boys, that hot run continued with, again, Down on the Corner, Fortunate Son. So that led to their 5th album just a few months later, because again, all of this is taking place within a couple of years, Cosmo's Factory, which is pretty much like their masterpiece. That's their best album. When you talk just front to back and the amount of just song after song after song, just one great song after another. And the song that I'm getting into here, Ramble Tamble, wasn't even a single from this album. It was the album opener, but Cosmo's Factory also had Traveling Band, Looking Out My Back Door. That's probably my 3rd favorite Creedence Clearwater song. So after, I would say, Ramble Tamble, then Bad Moon Rising, I would say my next favorite would be Looking Out My Back Door, also from Cosmo's Factory. So it's got those 2 songs. It's got Up Around the Bend. It's got Run Through the Jungle. It's got Long As I Could See the Light. That's actually the album closer. Beautiful song. And granted, after this album, Creedence had one more really good hit. It was Have You Ever Seen the Rain off of their Pendulum album. But, the band was pretty much in disarray, breaking up by that point with, the other band members not really getting along with John Fogerty, who was taking more and more of the band's responsibilities and the musical curation and creation responsibilities unto himself, kind of phasing the rest of the band members, including his brother Tommy Fogerty, out. And a lot of this was spelled the beginning of the end of Creedence Clearwater Revival. But on Cosmo's Factory, the album opener, again, it's a non-single. You don't hear it on any classic radio stations. You don't hear it sung anywhere karaoke-wise. You don't hear it in any music, film, like soundtracks or music scores on any TV shows, no commercials. You never hear Ramble Tamble. You would have to be listening basically to the album Cosmo's Factory to ever come across it. Like, they don't even lead you into it on most Southern rock or kind of working class blues rock playlists on Spotify. It's very tough to find. So no, this isn't Bad Moon Rising or Down on the Corner or Fortunate Son or Proud Mary, one of the countless Creedence hits, but it might just be their best song. And this song is 7 minutes long. Like, it starts off with like this guitar riff. It's so tasty. It goes like, and then you hear the drum come in, and then it starts to pick up a little bit, and then it gets into this very rockabilly. But it's got this whole rockabilly section where then you finally hear like a vocal, like several seconds, like almost a minute, if not more than a minute into it, you finally get the first vocal, which is Fogerty just howling like, ooh, down the road I go. And the band is it's so rockabilly, so just fast-paced, knee-slapping, just one of the best guitar riffs and so energetic. You cannot not move or shake or bob your head or something to this song once it starts getting into gear. And again, it doesn't take long to get into gear. So you've got this whole like 2-minute section, which could have been a standalone song unto itself. But then after that opening riveting section, you get into this psychedelic build, a lot of distortion on the guitars. It almost sounds like vintage Dark Side of the Moon, or the 4th album with Stairway to Heaven and When the Levee Breaks era Led Zeppelin, in terms of how much note bending on the guitars they're doing here. So they basically go from this fast-paced rockabilly section to this whole psychedelic 3 to 4 minute section in the middle, which just starts to build as the tempo goes from like a halt, like the song comes to a halt. Then they come with this whole psychedelic section with the build, and then it starts getting a little bit faster, and then like they're doing different things with the guitar notes every time they go through another passage as they slowly start to speed up. And then it just hits this fever pitch where it's just going dun, 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 dun. And as like the other instruments are just kind of building to this like crescendo almost. And then it just hits this beautiful guitar lick, which then transitions back to the opening section where it's that fast-paced, knee-slapping, rockabilly section. So they basically come full circle where, again, the song starts off like it's launched out of a cannon, and it's a beautiful, riveting verse from Fogerty where it's all actors in the White House, something's down the corner, ooh, down the road I go. And he's just vintage vintage Creedence here. So they go from that opener to that psychedelic section in the middle, and then they come full circle back to that riveting rockabilly section where there's a whole nother verse, and they basically pick up where they had left off near the beginning of the song, and it's as knee-slapping and fast-paced and riveting as ever. So, you know, if you like Bad Moon Rising and you like the I see that, you know, just that kind of pace, this is even faster than that. And again, just the fact that they take you through these different phases of the song, like the song, again, is more than 7 minutes long. I really think that this might be the greatest hidden gem of the Creedence Clearwater Revival discography. You've got to give this Ramble Tamble song a listen. In fact, there was like a music critic back in the day, back in the 70s, Stephen Hayden, who called this song the most rockin' song of all time. And often in some of these like late 60s into the early and mid 70s rock songs, you might get guitar solos that are brilliant, but they don't really have any direction. They don't really go anywhere. No. This solo, and it's a beautiful solo as that whole psychedelic section in the middle is playing, it's got direction. It builds. This thing just draws you in little by little. And by the time they kick it off at the end where they get back into that fast section that they started the song with, you are just enraptured. I could not believe it the first time I heard the Cosmo's Factory album. I had heard a lot of the Creedence hits, and I was a fan. I loved their rendition of Midnight Special. I loved their rendition of Heard It Through the Grapevine. But Ramble Tamble might just be the best Creedence Clearwater Revival song, and it's probably a song you've never heard or heard of before. So please give that a listen. Let me know what you think of Creedence Clearwater Revival. Again, I just think that it's amazing that they did all of this work within like a 2-year period. Astounding. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you love music like I do. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.